Hey guys, I'm Tanya.
I'm Tobi.
And we are Chassidim of Quarantine. We took a little break because we have been traveling, but we decided we're going to take you guys with us this week. And we are in Florida.
Oh, yeah. Last week's Parsha, Yosef is still in prison because he was accused of false accusations with one of the officers, and now he's still in prison, and Paro needs his dreams interpreted. So one of the people that he helped while he was in prison tells Paro that he's in there to come help him with his dreams. So Yosef ends up interpreting his dreams and tells him that there's going to be a famine. Then later on, Yosef's family actually comes, without knowing that it's him, to come purchase wheat and barley because they were able to prepare for this famine. And then a bunch of series of events happen until the point where the brothers find out that it is indeed their brother Yosef.
We learn in the Parsha that when Yosef's brothers saw him, they didn't recognize him. And it wasn't that they didn't recognize him physically, but they didn't recognize that side of him that had the potential to be the leader and the ruler of a huge dynasty. And we see that so many times in life. People doubt other people. You don't see the whole potential behind what someone is actually capable of doing. And the Rebbe, people doubted him before he became the Rebbe as well. But then afterwards, once we saw the effects and what he was capable of doing, then we're able to perceive that person's capabilities.
Chassidus explains that there are two kinds of tzaddikim. There's a kind of tzaddik that sees the world as godliness, that everything around him is godliness, and therefore he can use it to serve God properly. Then there's another kind of tzaddik who sees the world as a distraction and is constantly working on secluding himself and really focusing on his service or his connection to Hashem, but in a more private and unrelated way to the world. When Yosef became the high viceroy, he took upon himself to understand and fully acknowledge that he's going into this position, but he's not going to invest himself in the culture and in the ways of the Egyptians, but he still managed at the same time to be invested as a ruler, but finding that balance while perfecting himself in a spiritual way. But his brothers, on the other hand, they weren't as constantly aware of as God as they should have been, because they were always learning, but they weren't necessarily seeing the godliness around them.
We learn from here, from Yosef, that when we go through life, we see that people are always going through. You go to a good Farbringen and you're like on a spiritual high. You go to yeshiva or seminary in Israel and you feel like you're on top of the world spiritually. And then you come down from that and you crash. So there's a way to find a balance between that spiritual high and also just being a good, solid Jew in every other way in your Avaida as well as materially, in order to make sure that it doesn't fizzle out, that you have a constant thriving light within you that is working towards growing and becoming more spiritual.
A good example of this is that when we see people going to a yeshiva or seminary in Israel and they're surrounded by all this holiness, and then they come back to America and it's super disorienting because they go from this place of high and holiness and they come back to this mundane, absolute, not physical, because we are in a physical world, but a much more, a very different lifestyle. And the same thing is with Shabbos and other occasions. On Shabbos, we're given a second soul. We're on such a high, and we go into the week, which is such a complete, it's just such an odd transition. And that's why we have Motzei Shabbos, and there's this book called The Possible Man. I don't remember the name of the rabbi, so forgive me for that, but you should definitely look it up. He talks about how Motzei Shabbos is your time to reinvent yourself and prepare for the new week, and properly say goodbye to Shabbos while preparing yourself to go into a week of holiness, like a good transition.
Okay guys, so to make it practical, how are we going to take this and apply it to ourselves? Just don't take yourself too seriously. Obviously, your Avaida and your spirituality, it's not a joke, and it's something that should be looked at as a serious thing, but don't push yourself above what you're capable of. Don't push yourself to be on some crazy spiritual high. Just make sure that you're able to stick to what you're doing and continue to grow. Exactly, at your own pace and your own time. And that's all we got this week, guys. So we will be back next week and get Shabbos.
Stay safe.
Stay strong.
Stay connected.